Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you back to the Surrender with Grace interview series. Today, we have Clara Wilcox, who is based in the West Midlands in England. Clara is a qualified career coach, amongst many other things. So welcome, Clara.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. What I'd like to mention, first of all, before we get going, is everyone that I've chosen, all of the influential speakers that have been joined us on the series have a relevant and a different point of view. And the reason why I chose you is really to support people thinking about outward focusing and focusing forward, moving onwards, in terms of what you support people with. So can you tell us your journey and tell us all about what you do and why you do the wonderful work that you do?
Yeah. Okay, so the speciality that I do in my work with the Balance Collective is all about helping parents find a work-life balance that works for them. And this has come from a place of 2 decades nearly, actually, working in careers, helping people with their jobs. So for my sins, I started my career as a recruitment consultant. And what I really loved about that was the ability to sit down with somebody and unpick the motivations behind the jobs that they do. And that has continued all the way through my career. And what I noticed when I became a parent, so I have a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old, is that, unsurprisingly, your priorities shift when you have a little person or people in your life that all of a sudden what you want changes. But quite often people struggle with that because you have your outward expectations, you've had your life path that you've gone on, you have the expectations of other people, your manager or your colleagues or your family, and people really struggle balancing the new version of them with what they wanted out of their career. I did myself. So I went back to work after having my 12-year-old and still was very driven to a job title and salary levels and all the pride and the success measures that came from
your identity kind of changes a little bit.
Yes, and actually, interestingly for me, it wasn't until other life events happened that what I wanted shifted. And actually, it's trying to balance that, you can be a working parent and have career aspirations. It doesn't have to be either one or the other. But a lot of people were finding that from subtle conversations to outright discrimination. And I was in a place where I had a great job, wonderful supported team, flexible working without any real pressure, negotiation. It wasn't a hard graft to get that flexible working, and I felt really lost. I felt really my decision making, I struggled with that. This was after my 2nd child, and I thought, if I have everything that everyone else wants, good job, career progression, flexible working, family friendly environment, a job that I love, and I feel like this, how are other people feeling when they don't have all that support? So I did what a lot of people do. I went and looked for a coach that could help me. Couldn't really find someone that combined career aspirations and action focus and that real driven practical logic with someone that understood the needs of working parent. So I then thought, well, I'm going to be that person. So that's what I did. And that's what the Balance Collective offers, really, is options to help working parents craft out what works for them.
Right. That's really, really interesting. And in terms of how you work with people now, I mean, are you working with individuals and single parents, families, but mostly locally to where you are, or are you kind of career coaching online as well?
It's pretty much 99.9% remotely, so over Zoom, over phone, because what I'm finding is the power of social media is that the messages that I send out, the people that get it, the people that like the way that I work, very straight talking, very practical, very action focused, they like that irrespective of where they live. So I think the furthest client I've had away remotely, South Africa. But I also have people that are local, so there's a few people that will meet in a coffee shop. However, the really interesting thing that I find with coaching, even though the coaching that I do is very around about beliefs and career and job focus and business focus, there is always one session, one question that will hit a nerve, hit an emotional nerve with somebody, and it can become quite emotional for them. And actually having the ability for me to sit in my house and for them to sit in an office or sit in their house and have that conversation, I think makes the coaching more productive. Because doing it in public, doing it in a coffee shop where you're surrounded by people, where it's distractions, people don't necessarily really get in touch with what they're doing. And the work that I do with individuals through organisations, again, is done where you have that privacy of an office. I am very, very, very public about the fact that I work school hours. That is something that I am very strict about for my work-life balance, and I know it's something that a lot of my clients aspire to, is having a healthy work-life balance. So therefore I limit the amount of time I travel. So having the ability to work remotely with people between the hours of 9:30 and 5 minutes past 3 means I can fit more people in on my day.
Yeah, it's compact. It's more compact.
Yeah.
So considering our audience today, for some people, I can imagine, whether they are parents or or really just going out, starting on their path, have you had that people just sometimes have no idea where they're or what it's kind of, I imagine it's a bit of a journey sometimes, trying to open people up to discovering where their interest laid. Is that something that you've experienced?
Yes, it's very, very common, especially with people that are returning to work after a break, or they've decided that they want to do something new. I think it's quite deep-seated, and I get a bit ranty about it, but we're very institutionalised in this country. So our education system tells us to behave in a particular way, and then you go down a particular route and you're told, well, if you do X, therefore you can do Y. And people totally undervalue the transferability of their skills.
Okay. Do you mean
so they may come to me?
Do you mean, sorry to disturb you, do you mean in terms of having to go to university to get that degree to do that job?
There's that. There's also, if somebody hasn't gone down an academic route, that they can only go down a particular career progression. So I have done a finance route, or I've done a marketing job, or I've done administration, or I've been a teacher. I can only do this going forward. When actually what I do a lot of work on is getting people to strip back job titles and look at how they've approached the job that they've done, what made them successful in that role. So rather than just, this is the job that I did, well, how did you know it was working? Okay, and then they give me the answer. Well, what skills do you think you used to make that happen? What would you do differently? How did you approach that? What did you really enjoy about that role? And how did you make that happen? And what tends to happen is people then build an idea of who they are as a working person, rather than I am a finance manager, I am a marketing manager, I am a teacher. And I do a lot of work around transferable skills. So for example, if you've worked in a particular sector, you know that sector really well, and that's valuable to people. Even if you decide not to continue in that route, you understand the inner workings. So you could move to an organisation where your old sector are their clients. So maybe you were a teacher. Why don't you move to somewhere where education is the client base of that organisation? Because that's useful knowledge. People tend to, especially if they're changing careers, draw a line and feel like they're starting again. And you see that a lot of language when it comes to returning to work. And it's not just parents that return to work. People have career breaks for a whole range of different reasons. About starting again, and you're not. It's cumulative. And that, you need to identify the steps that you've taken to where you go to. And the number one thing that people do all the time, and this is coming from a career coach, so this may shock you, your job doesn't have to be all and end all. So many people pin all of their purpose on their job. And actually sometimes your job is a springboard to do the things that really fill you up. So it could be amateur dramatics, it could be volunteering, it could be your family, it could be you're an author, you're a painter, but your job gives you the stability to enable you to do the other things. It keeps your energy levels up. It doesn't deplete your energy levels. It maintains a certain financial security.
Right.
So sometimes the conversation I have with people is, the job is the catalyst to other pieces of your life. If you can find something that you do that you love and it pays you, that's brilliant. But it's not failure to have a job that enables you to do other things.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that people come to, that's their measure of success. I've done this degree, therefore I can't waste it. But if it doesn't make you happy, so there's all of these conversations that come up.
Yeah.
What actually happens, people come to me and say, I need a job in. And it's like, no, wind it back. Let's think of a bigger picture.
Right, exactly. And it's a good, I imagine it's a good stepping stone. It's like a beginning again. It's a way forward for perhaps for those who, like you say, haven't worked for a while and they just don't actually know where they want to go. It's the action step that then opens up. So that's really interesting that everything else in their life is actually part of the picture, isn't it? It's all those life skills. It's not just academically what they have or have done in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And I find that myself. So the backbone of my working career was interviewing people either for other people. So as a recruitment consultant, I would be interviewing people on behalf of a client, or when I was working in the corporate world, I was interviewing people for my team. And most of the time, the reasons why people get a job are not necessarily academics or work experience. It's how they approach things. It's the interesting way that they live their life. It's their lived experience. It's the values that they hold. And people don't necessarily consider the whole picture when they are actually putting themselves forward for work as well.
That's so interesting. That's really interesting because people could in fact really choose totally the wrong path because they think that that's what they should be doing instead of really looking a bit deeper than that and thinking about where they're going really. And
quite often people come to me and they definitely know what they don't want to do. They know they're not happy, but they have absolutely no idea how they've got to that place. And one useful thing to do in that situation is look back and decide on to identify why they've got to where they are. Because people, if you can't understand the career mistakes you're making, you can't avoid them happening again. So people may follow a particular person, a manager, to a different job. They may only go for jobs when they've been asked to apply for a job. And a lot of that is around self-esteem and self-worth and understanding the skill base. So many people are led by permission, they're good enough, and then they end up getting lost in in someone else's expectations of what they should or shouldn't do. And the minute the word should pops up, you've got to stop and pay attention because it's a big tell.
Right. Wow. It sounds like what you're doing is quite empowering for the person that you're working with, actually, isn't it? It's really getting them on the right track that's right for them, really. And
definitely.
So logistically, how does that work in terms of, the process? And tell us a little bit as well about, I know I was listening to you on an interview talking about in LinkedIn and forming, a resume on LinkedIn, and tell us a little bit structurally how you work with people.
Okay, so from a practical perspective, if anyone wants to work one-on-one with me, we always have a conversation first, because both sides need to work out if we're actually the right person. And it's really unpicking what somebody needs. Sometimes what somebody thinks they need is not right. So they'll come to me and say it's confidence, but actually it's self-awareness, let's say. Everybody gets a breakdown of, I get to unpick what they're about before we start. So I always want to start with an idea of the end goal. There's a massive misconception in coaching, and it's something that a lot of people seem to want, is somebody to tell them, what do you think I should work on? And I'm like, it's whatever you want to work on. This is what I'm hearing, but you need to decide, you need to commit on that. So they set up their expectations around their goals at the very beginning. And then through the initial conversation, it's like, well, is it CV work? Is it LinkedIn work? And if it's things like that, I get it in advance and I do a consultative approach. So I go through, as if you were my candidate when I was back in recruitment, this is the changes that I'd want. These are the questions that I'm asking as a potential recruiter. These are the ways that we're going to pull out some more information face to face. If it's a mock interview practice, they give me their job description, their CV in advance, and I interview them as if I was interviewing them for a client of mine.
Right.
So some of it's exceptionally structured,
Right.
and it's much more consultative. And then for other people, we start with their values. So if it's a longer term coaching program, we look at their values, we look at how it's showing up in their life and their work. And the first session is more about unpicking the version of them and what they want. And then every single session, led by the client, is a particular goal they want to work on and a coaching conversation. Sometimes it moves into mentorship. And I think, again, people have to understand what they want. Do they want a coach? Do they want a mentor? Or do they want a consultant or a trainer? Because in reality, a coach shares none of their experience, none of their insights. So most people I actually mentor with a coaching conversation, because they've been intrigued by my life story and my approach. So they want to understand how I've got to where I am. And that happens a lot when I'm working with mums, usually, that have had problematic pregnancies, gone through baby loss, and they want to understand how I am where I am now, because that's our life experience. So it's quite, I'm a bit of a strange entity in that I'm exceptionally I'm all up there, very logical, very processed. I love my books, I love all the academia, but actually the coaching process is quite intuitive.
Yes.
So for a lot of people, it feels like we're having a conversation for an hour. What they're not noticing is the tick, 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 tick that's going on in my brain, picking up the particular words, zoning in on certain things, guiding them to have a real focus that's action at the end.
Right.
So at the end of every section, they have an action around work-life balance, career, business processes, all those types of things.
Wow.
So it's constantly sort of reacting to what people need, and I've almost got like a little filing system in my brain that just sort of pulls out what people need.
Right. And that's where the mentorship and the teaching kind of kicks in then, really.
Yes. Yeah. Because again, if somebody's coming to me for a mock interview, I'm not going to sit there and be, so tell me how you feel it went, because they want my feedback and they want my guidance. If someone's coming to me around confidence, we start with, what is confidence to you? How do you know when you're confident? Why do you feel like you need support? So it's all of those types of conversations. And actually one client can pull in and out of all of those across a whole coaching campaign.
Yeah. And so how long normally does the process go on for then, or does it really depend?
Yeah. It depends, and I know that can sound a bit sort of up in the air. For people, most people benefit for 4 months. So return to work 4 months, career coaching, business development 4 months. So that is 6 sessions over a 4-month period, because most people want quick fixes, and it doesn't exist. You need the time to make those changes, to have those conversations, to change your CV, to have alterations in terms of how you do things. So that tends to be the typical work that people have with me.
Right.
It's a 4-month process. When you're looking to return to work after a career break, or return to work when you've had traditional maternity or parental leave, it can take up to 4 to 6 months to feel settled. Right. So on that perspective, the 4 months is very practical, just to be there sort of so that people can check in as it goes. Some people, it's very, very quick, 90 minutes, just CV work. All they want is someone to sit with them and to work on their CV. Right. Quite often, coaching conversations come in around self-limiting beliefs, confidence. Confidence underpins everything, absolutely everything. So, that will come up as part of it. But the minimum amount of time people can be with me is 90 minutes, right up to a 4-month or longer. I have some clients that we just check in every month.
Right.
They have quite long-standing goals, so we just have like a repeated meeting on a monthly basis where we talk to people as well. What I don't like to be is prescriptive, and for some people they don't like that. They want to know checklists, they want to know how it all works. That I'm not that type of person. I personally wouldn't like to work that way or be coached that way, so therefore I don't. And I think this is why it's so important, if anyone's considering working with a coach, is you have that conversation to understand how are we going to work together. And hopefully the way that I share my wares on social media, people get a bit of a feel for that. I'm a bit like, what do you need?
Right, which is great. That's great. So in terms of the social media, and just coming back to LinkedIn a little bit, how does that work? So for example, we likely have a few people here in the US, I say a few people, lots of people, who may be thinking of a complete career change. And in terms of reaching out to the world, LinkedIn seems to be a big one. It seems
massive. Massive.
So what
LinkedIn,
would you advise on that?
Yeah, look at LinkedIn like a conversation. So all about personal branding on LinkedIn. So this is a place that you can network, you can have conversations, you can communicate your thoughts and your skill base. So there's almost two ways you've got to consider LinkedIn. First of all is your profile. So as you would do with a CV, what do you do, how do you do it, who do you work for, why do you work for them? Go in mind when you interact with LinkedIn is who are you planning to talk to? What's the point of LinkedIn for you?
Yeah.
Is it finding a job? Is it raising your personal brand to be known as a specialist? Is it selling? Is your job selling things? Be very, very honest and blunt with yourself. What is your LinkedIn mission? And always have that in mind, because that will then feed into how you talk about yourself and your skills. It'll lead into what you share on LinkedIn. LinkedIn rewards active people. We all know about algorithms, or at least know the word nowadays. My 6-year-old's being taught algorithms at school, so that's how relevant it is. You need to be on there every day. So think about LinkedIn the same way you'd think about a website and social media. Your profile is your website, your activity is your social media, and it's constantly drip feeding for them people to come and look at your profile. So if all you've got is a profile, and you're not sharing, you're not commenting, nobody's going to find you. Nobody's going to find you, because you're not showing up in their ether. If you can work Facebook, you can work LinkedIn nowadays. So every single day, go on, comment, share something, from, perspectives to articles to things that you write, and that will drive people to your profile that think the same way that you do. And then it's a conversation. Right. Don't do anything on LinkedIn you wouldn't do face to face, is the simple advice that I give people.
Right. And do you think that LinkedIn is probably the most powerful, or do you like all of the social media platforms in terms of them all working together?
I think you have to be really clear on who you're talking to. I think far too many people will spend far too much time on everything. So I personally spend the most amount of time on Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I'm having a conversation. In my head, I'm talking to businesses who support their staff. On Facebook, I'm talking to individuals who are either returning to work, or they're in work, or they run their own business. So you need to put your effort into the places that your client base exists in, basically. So LinkedIn, if you're going in as a job searcher, that is a brilliant place to be. You've got so many opportunities, advertise on LinkedIn. There's recruiters that are there all the time finding people that have the skills base that you potentially have. I spend a lot of time on there talking to other people that do similar things to me about working families, working mothers, return to work. So, but you've always got to start with, why am I on there? What's the point? What's the point of anything? Think about what's the point. Think about who you want to engage with. Think about what is success. So for LinkedIn, success for you might be getting a job. So then you've got to think about, how do I promote what I do and how I do it. LinkedIn has the ability to apply for a job straight off your profile. So you can make life quite easy for yourself. So it's just about getting quite clear on the purpose for you, really.
And do you help people, support them in building that and giving them clear instructions? Because some people may never have done that before. So it's a case of clear instructions on, this is what you need to be doing every day and once a week.
So I do group workshops, I do individual consulting, I've got an online course as well. So again, it's scary. People are scared of LinkedIn. They're scared of saying the wrong thing. They're scared of doing the wrong thing. They're scared of of upsetting people. It's a very interesting place to be when people are so comfortable with something like Facebook,
right,
even for business purposes.
right,
Yet LinkedIn just feels very different for people.
right.
But the more time you spend on any of these networks, the more you realise what you're comfortable with, because the information that you consume is consumed by other people. So you need to be the person that's going and putting it out there as well.
Yeah.
But there's this professional veneer on LinkedIn that scares people, which is unnecessary.
Right. So that brings me to my next couple of questions. So, tell me about your thoughts, because there are two things here. One is obviously developing your sense of leadership, because going into working on LinkedIn, promoting oneself, finding who they want to work with, or a new job or a career, or just some kind of a direction going forward. And there's a certain amount of leadership and confidence that has to be built with that. Also, what's your feeling on having a community and the necessity to have a community around you?
I'm going to answer the second question first. So I think everybody has to have a community around them. I think, on the very basic level, we're social animals. Historically, we're tribal. And this is where social media can be amazing and awful in equal measures. And what I've found, which has been wonderful about LinkedIn and other social media mechanisms as well, you find people, by sharing what you think and sharing your views on the world, you naturally connect with people that think the same way. And in a business or a career setting, LinkedIn, I've had so many interesting conversations and connections with people that I would never have had the opportunity to meet, because we don't live in the same, like me and you, we don't even live in the same country. But by sharing authentically who you are, and I know authenticity gets overused, but the general advice I've got here is, if you go to post something or comment on something and in your tummy or your chest you feel nervous or anxious, it's possibly telling you one of two things. It's massively stretching you out of your comfort zone, and that's okay, because do you know what? Also, social media channels have a delete button.
Yes.
They have an edit button if you spell something incorrectly, and they have a delete button if you don't want to be involved anymore. So if you know those things and that anxiety goes, then put it. The second point of anxiety can be because you don't feel comfortable sharing it, because actually it's not who you are, so you don't share it. So trust your instincts, but to find your community, you need to have those people around you. From a personal leadership perspective, nothing beats hearing what people think. People are so interested. Again, we're a tribal organisation, we're a tribal species that live by stories.
Right.
That's what we do, sitting around a campfire, watching the television, watching things like this. It basically is a story. We are interested in that. And the best way to show who you are and what you do is sharing what you think. So it can be, you might be a blogger. I write all the time. That's out there all the time. And as I get more confident in my version of who I am, and the truth of who I am, I'm getting more honest. I've written a blog this week that actually I wouldn't have written about two years ago, because I didn't want to upset anyone. But I'm like, no, I have opinions on something, and actually I know how to say this respectfully. So you can have an opinion, you're respectful, you're able to put that like that, and that shows leadership, saying I agree with this, or I don't agree with this, or this is my perspective, or this is what I'm doing, and this is how it's impacting the world. It doesn't have to be a really intellectual piece. It doesn't have to be researched to the hilt. It's just your opinion. And actually, I think there's 5 stories, when you actually look at everything that's ever been created, nothing's original anymore. It's just opinion, or it's different perspective. And that's the best way to show yourself as a leader.
Yeah.
Is just to lift your head up a little bit and say, this is what I think. Right. This is what I think.
Right. And I heard also this wonderful, and it is true, I think, that people follow each other, or they buy, for example, it's based on feelings often. It's not on an intellectual choice of, that computer's better than that. It's a feeling. It's how does it make you feel? What's the concepts around it, and the same, especially in relationships. It's a feeling thing, and whether you've got a good feeling with someone or not.
Definitely.
And
we'll intellectualize it after the decision.
Right.
We'll go, I did this because of blah, 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 blah. But actually, and I find that a lot in my career coaching, when I say why did you choose the job that you did, just felt right.
Yeah.
How many times have we walked into houses and just bought a house because we liked how it felt?
Totally.
That's just how we work. So I think it's trusting to a certain perspective, trusting in yourself, trusting your decisions. And if you're new to expressing yourself publicly, it starts small. It doesn't have to be, it's liking someone's post, it's commenting, I really enjoyed that, thank you. It's sharing something that you've read and you agree with. So you can start building up that without actually having to open yourself up too wide. If you're in a position where you're just not ready to do that, you start small. It can be documenting what you're doing. So you might have gone somewhere for a walk at lunchtime because you're reading a particular book, so you take a photograph of the book that you're reading. Or you may have tried something new, you really like a quote on a wall, and it's little subtle things like that then builds your confidence to share more things. But on a practical perspective, I can spend hours crafting what I think is a really impactful post, and it gets a couple of interactions, or I can just quickly snap something off that I find amusing. So comedy, think of the things as human beings we share, and that's light-hearted, it's comedy, it's feeling that you belong because you're doing something. So it doesn't have to be massive. Don't overthink things. Just share who you are quite naturally.
So you've brought me beautifully to the next subject. So your tell us about your book you're writing at the moment, and about your blog as well, because I think you've got some. It's obviously your passion. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, so I'll start with my blog, and that will feed into the book. So I wrote a lot as a child, and like a lot of people, you get to work and people like you to have a particular writing style. So I sort of stepped back from writing for a while. And then when I started my own business, everyone says you need to blog. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. I have opinions on most things, a lot of opinions. So I tend to write on confidence, career, return to work, work-life balance and business. So that's the themes of my blog. And about 2 years ago, I joined, about two and a half years ago, I joined the writing team of a wonderful online magazine, I suppose, called The Motherload. So between The Motherload and what I was writing, what I started to feel that it was very important for me to talk about my experience as a bereaved parent returning to work. And actually, just over 2.5 years ago was the first time I'd wrote about our experience. So like a lot of families, we've gone through baby loss, one at nearly 9 weeks pregnant and one at nearly 21 weeks pregnant. And this has fed into how I look at risk, what I fight for. I'm very public in saying I don't think I would have gone self-employed if we hadn't have lost my little boy, because what I'd realised was that, very simply, life is too short. You shouldn't wait for things to happen. So about 2.5 years ago, I started just very gently writing about my experience of being a bereaved parent, partly communicating to businesses about the reality, what employees want when they're coming back to work as a bereaved parent. I've also written about what I personally learned from being a bereaved parent, and both in work and in personal life. And it comes up a lot, as you can tell, I'm a talker. It comes up a lot in presentations I've done, in face-to-face conversations. And it was actually a very good friend of mine who said, you need to write a book. I was like, oh, no, you need to write a book. So I started, and basically this book it's the book that I needed to read when we lost our little boy. So we lost our first baby in 2009 and our second in 2010. And I scrambled around a lot for something that would help me and couldn't find it. I needed something that was practical, that was quite confrontational, I suppose, compared to some of the other things, that dealt with what they call second trimester loss. So we lost our little baby at nearly 21 weeks pregnancy due to a condition called Potter syndrome, which basically means totally incompatible with life. And there isn't at the time, and things are starting to change now, which is wonderful. There wasn't really what I needed, which was you had no choice. this is the reality of what it's like. This is how you're going to get through it. This is what you're going to feel. So that's what the book's about. So it's about pregnancy, it's about fertility issues, it's about baby loss, it's about maternal mental health, it's about returning to work, it's about having other children. It's all the stuff that we've gone through, but I've also been able to draw on the experience of 12 other wonderful women that have had a whole variety of different infertility and baby loss situations, which again showing it's not, baby loss isn't the same for anybody. And talking about basically all of the things that people didn't talk about. So, you know, things like what it's like to go back to work when you've had a bereavement, how it feels to carry on living when actually there's a part of you and you're not quite sure how to deal with it. There's sometimes funny things that happen, the way that your brain and your body reacts to grief, what grief is, how it feels. And then the last part of the book is basically coaching. So working out the version of yourself now, for who you are now and what you want out of life. And hopefully, and people have told me in the people that have read it so far, it's hopeful, that it's realistic, but it's hopeful. The working title is It Was Just Meant to Be Another Nonsense, because that's what you're told. It's just meant to be, which just wasn't meant to be. So it is just a very honest reflection on how it impacts the family. So my eldest daughter, she's written a piece, my husband's written a piece, my mother has written a piece. So it's just about the realities really of what happens, and hopefully it will help some people.
I'm sure it will. Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing, really.
Thank you.
And so interesting that it was it's only at a certain point that you've realised that it's time to now speak about it. And
yeah,
that's the journey.
Yeah, and I think it's again, you know, it wasn't that it was hidden before, it was just I was dealing with it, we were dealing with it as a family in a particular way. And again, you know, like day to day, it's only when you look back and you start to piece things together and intellectualize it. You know, at the time certain things were done from gut and emotion and survival, and now we're in a position sort of 8 years on where life is different. Some of it's better, some of it's the same, some of it we'll never quite, you know, get over it. But actually, this is almost a letter to myself 8 years ago, sort of saying. And actually, I do that in part. I do that in the book. I write myself a letter in the past and sort of say, I know you won't realise it now, but life will be wonderful again. It's just going to take a bit of time. Because when it happened for us, I remember sitting there thinking, I don't know how I'm going to ever feel happy again. Don't know how it's ever going to happen. It took a few years. And it took a few challenges and a lot of self-reflection and asking for help and getting better. And so this book will raise money for Edwards Trust, which is the child bereavement charity that helped me and my daughter through counselling. So I think it's having just a really honest conversation about it. It's horrible. It is horrible, but it doesn't define you. It becomes part of you.
Exactly.
But it doesn't define you.
And exactly. And like you say, it's part of all the work that you do now. It's who you are, and it's in everything. It's really powerful. Really powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, I shall look forward to reading it when
Thank you.
It's ready. Tell us then a little bit about the offer for everyone today.
Yeah, well, it's very, very simple. I write every single week, and the way that I consider my writing is a weekly coaching session. So every single time I write something, it's something that's very actionable, and things you can take away and use. So I've known people that have used my blog to help themselves get a new job, for example. They just pick up all the different parts, put it together, and I want my blog to be for people that won't or can't work with me. So it's very simply sign up every single week straight into your inbox. It is a piece of me basically helping you with your work-life balance or your career or your confidence. It's updates on everything that you may possibly need to basically get your life on track. So that's what it is.
Right. And through that they can reach out to you as well if they want to.
Oh, yeah, if they want to, but if they don't, literally consume the information that I provide and use it how you see fit.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it is an ongoing journey, isn't it? This is the thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
definitely.
It's great. And okay, well, do you have any final words at all for everyone watching today that's maybe
you know, maybe thinking about a career change, or they're kind of in the thick of it and not quite ready yet. You know, or maybe they're just quite lost, to be honest.
Yeah.
Where to go forward? What's your advice?
Yeah, I think the thing to remember is this: you always have time. People always feel like they're on this massive deadline, and you don't. You need to identify what is useful for you, what you need in your current life circumstance. And remember, you're in a lot more control than you think you are. So take a breath, take a moment, jot down what you enjoy doing, what you are good at, and what people need. And then that, over time, will combine you for your career path. Also bear in mind that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. So the realities about what we need as an economy are changing. The jobs that exist now didn't exist 10 years ago. The jobs that are going to exist in 10 years don't exist now. So you, as long as you're open to opportunities and continuously learning, that is really, really valuable. So take the opportunities you want, but don't feel like that you've left it too late because you haven't.
Right. So and starting with the now and
yeah,
your interest is a powerful place to start, ultimately.
Very much so, very much so. What a lot of people do is they undervalue what they're good at because it feels easy. Ask other people what they think you're good at, and that will quite often lead you down a path that you hadn't considered. Right. Because if you find it easy, you probably won't think it's worth pursuing because you assume everyone else can do it. So ask feedback from other people. That's useful to do as well.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great advice. All right, well, thank you so much.
That's okay.
And for sharing your story as well, Clara. We'll look forward to the book, and yeah, if everyone signs up, then they will be receiving some information about the book, so for sure
they will.
We'll be doing that.
They will.
And on your page, we'll make sure that they have all the information they need so they can reach out to you as well.
That would be wonderful. I look forward to it. I look forward to watching the other videos as well.
No, there's some amazing information and some incredible advice from some really, really great people. All right. Thank you so much, Clara. Okay.
No worries. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day. Thank you.